5:03 p.m. Wide hangar, cold industrial lights. A corporate helicopter sat silent. Flight schedule delayed. Technicians standing in a circle. Sweat and pressure. Clara Vaughn, 44, CEO. Her heels stopped in front of the aircraft nose. Ben Walker, 42, maintenance worker, single dad. Oil-stained coveralls, standing outside the circle. Clara laughed, half joking, half mocking. "Fix this helicopter, I'll kiss you right now." A few laughs erupted. Ben didn't laugh, didn't blush. He looked straight at her, spoke slowly. "Ma'am, that's not how safety works." The hangar froze. The air changed color, and everyone was about to witness something they'd never seen before. Ben Walker had worked frontline maintenance for 12 years. Quiet, always on time, never late, never complained. He was a single father raising his daughter Ava, 9 years old, alone. His wife had died 4 years ago. Cancer, fast and brutal. Ben chose the early shift every day, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., so he could pick Ava up from school, be there when she needed him. Nobody in the hangar knew much about Ben's past. He didn't share, didn't socialize after work, just did his job, did it well, then went home. Clara Vaughn was known throughout the company, sharp, demanding, brilliant at business, but she had a habit, using humor to push people, to create pressure, to get results faster. Some called it charisma, others called it crossing lines. The helicopter had a startup issue, auxiliary ignition system. The fault wasn't showing up on diagnostics. The technical team had run through the standard checklist twice. Nothing, no error codes, no obvious problems. But the engine wouldn't turn over properly. Clara had a board meeting across the state. High stakes, critical investors. The delay was making her anxious, making her impatient. The joke about kissing, it came out casual, flippant, a way to ease tension. Or so she thought. But to Ben, it wasn't funny, it was wrong. Not because he was offended personally, but because it trivialized what he did, what everyone in that hangar did. Safety wasn't a game, wasn't a joke, wasn't something you dangled as a reward. Ben thought about Ava, about how she watched him, how she learned from him, how she would one day work somewhere, and he wanted her to know. Boundaries weren't rude, they were necessary. Respect wasn't earned by laughing along, it was earned by standing firm. So when Clara made her comment, Ben didn't smile politely, didn't play along to keep the peace. He responded with the truth, simple, direct, professional. The hangar went quiet. A few technicians shifted uncomfortably. One manager frowned, whispered to a colleague, "He's going too far." But Ben wasn't going anywhere. He was exactly where he needed to be, on the line between competence and compromise. Clara's smile faded, not from anger, from surprise. She wasn't used to being told no. Not like that, not so calmly, not in front of her team. Ben stepped forward, not aggressive, just purposeful. He looked at the helicopter, then at the lead technician. "How long since you ran the acoustics check?" The technician blinked. "We don't usually—" "I know, but humor me." Ben walked around the helicopter slowly, listening, watching, reading the machine like a language only he understood. Clara watched him. Everyone did. His movements were deliberate, confident, not showy, just skilled. A younger engineer leaned toward his supervisor. "Is he serious?" The supervisor nodded. Ben doesn't joke about aircraft. Ben stopped at the rear rotor assembly, knelt down, placed his hand flat against the engine housing, closed his eyes. The hangar was silent now. No one laughed. No one spoke. They just watched. Ben tapped the metal with his knuckles, 3 times, listening to the resonance, the way sound traveled, the way vibrations moved. He stood up, pointed to a specific panel. "Check the secondary relay, 3rd position, there's a micro jam, below sensor threshold." The lead technician hesitated. "That's not in the startup fault tree." "I know, check it anyway." Clara crossed her arms, not defensive, curious. She'd seen a lot of technicians, a lot of engineers, but something about Ben was different. He wasn't performing. He was working. The technician opened the panel, pulled out the relay module, examined it under light. His face changed. He's right. There's a catch, barely visible, but it's there. The hangar exhaled. Collectively, Clara looked at Ben, really looked at him. How did you know? Ben met her eyes. Because I listen, and because I don't rush safety, not for anyone. The air shifted, the power dynamic that had been tilted. Casual, dismissive. It leveled, not through confrontation, through competence, through quiet dignity. Clara nodded slowly. Fix it. Ben turned to the team. Reset the startup sequence. Manual override. We're not replacing the part. We're realigning the procedure. One of the engineers started to protest. Ben cut him off gently. Trust me. And they did. Because in that moment, Ben had done something rare. He'd earned respect. Not by being loud, not by being aggressive, but by being right, and by refusing to compromise what mattered. The helicopter started within 40 seconds. Smooth, clean, no warning lights, no errors. The rotors spun evenly. The engine hummed, perfect. Clara didn't smile, didn't joke. She just watched. Ben stepped back, wiped his hands on a rag, didn't celebrate, didn't look for approval, just another day, another problem solved. But everyone in that hangar knew something had changed. The way they looked at Ben, the way they looked at themselves, and the way they would think about safety from now on. The helicopter's rotors slowed to a stop. The test run complete. Successful. But the atmosphere in the hangar remained heavy, uncomfortable. Clara stood near the aircraft nose, arms still crossed, face unreadable. She wasn't angry, but she wasn't smiling either. Something in her expression had shifted. Something like recognition, or maybe shame. A few technicians tried to laugh, to break the tension, to pretend everything was normal. But the laughter died quickly, forced, hollow, because everyone felt it, the weight of what had just happened. Ben had responded to Clara's challenge, not with humor, not with flirtation, but with professionalism, with a boundary. And that boundary had exposed something. The joke hadn't been funny, it had been inappropriate, uncomfortable. And now in the silence after, everyone knew it. One of the senior engineers approached Clara, tried to smooth things over. Ma'am, the aircraft is ready. You can depart whenever you're... Clara raised a hand, stopped him mid-sentence. Give me a moment. Her voice was quiet, controlled, but there was something underneath, something she was processing. Ben had moved to the back of the hangar, washing his hands at the industrial sink, scrubbing oil from under his fingernails. Not hiding, just finishing his work. A younger technician walked over to him, voice low, almost conspiratorial. Man, you've got guts. I thought she was going to fire you on the spot. Ben dried his hands, didn't look up. She won't fire me for doing my job. But you embarrassed her, in front of everyone. No, Ben turned to face him. I set a boundary. That's not embarrassment. That's clarity. The young man blinked, processing. Still, people don't talk to her like that. Maybe they should. Ben walked past him, back toward his workstation. He had paperwork to complete, maintenance logs to sign. The day wasn't over. Clara watched him go, her jaw tight. She turned to her assistant, a woman in her 30s who'd been standing quietly nearby, observing everything. Jen, be honest with me. The assistant hesitated. About what, ma'am? That comment I made, the kiss joke, was it appropriate? Jen's eyes widened slightly. She'd worked with Clara for 5 years, rarely saw her question herself. I don't think it was, ma'am. Why didn't you say something? Because I'm your assistant, not your equal. Clara absorbed that, the truth of it, the power dynamic she'd created, where people laughed because they had to, not because things were funny. She looked back toward Ben. He was at his desk now, writing, focused, unbothered. What do you know about him? Clara asked. Jen pulled out her tablet, scrolled through employee files. Ben Walker, 12 years with the company, perfect safety record, no disciplinary issues. Widower, single father, one daughter. He always leaves exactly at 3 p.m. Why 3? School pickup. He never misses it. Clara felt something twist in her chest. This man, who'd just stood up to her, who'd refused to play along with her joke. He wasn't being difficult. He was being a father, a professional, someone who understood what mattered. The operations manager approached Clara, nervous, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, about Walker's insubordination?" "Stop!" Clara's voice was sharp. The manager froze. "He wasn't insubordinate. He was right. But he contradicted you in front of..." "He set a professional boundary, which I crossed. Don't call it insubordination when someone enforces basic respect." The manager's mouth opened, closed. No words came. Clara took a breath. She'd built her career on being direct, on being tough, on pushing through barriers. But somewhere along the way, she'd confused pushing people with leading them. She'd used humor as a tool, sometimes as a weapon, and she'd never stopped to ask if anyone felt safe saying no. Ben had said no, calmly, clearly, without apology, and it had stopped her cold. She walked across the hangar, her heels clicking on concrete, deliberate, purposeful. Ben heard her approach, looked up from his paperwork, his expression neutral, not defensive, not challenging, just waiting. Clara stopped in front of his desk. "Mr. Walker." "Ma'am?" "What I said earlier, about fixing the helicopter, about the kiss, that was inappropriate." Ben set down his pen. "Yes, it was." No softening, no accepting a half apology, just agreement. Clara respected that. "I'm sorry, publicly, I should not have made that comment. It was unprofessional, and it was wrong." Ben nodded. "Thank you. Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Why did you respond the way you did?" "You could have just ignored it. Fixed the helicopter, taken the compliment." Ben leaned back in his chair, considered the question. "Because safety isn't a transaction. It's not something I do for rewards, or approval, or attention. It's what I do because it's right. And when it gets treated like a game, people die." Clara felt the weight of that. "You've seen that happen." "Yes." Ben's voice was quiet, but firm. "My wife died because someone rushed a medical procedure, skipped a step, wanted to finish early. Go home." She bled out on the table. Clara's breath caught. "I'm so sorry. That's why I don't laugh at safety jokes, because they're not jokes. They're failures waiting to happen." The hangar felt even quieter now. Clara nodded slowly. "Understanding. Really understanding. You have a daughter. Ava. She's 9. You pick her up at 3. Every day." Clara looked at her watch. It was 5:40. "I've kept you late." "It's fine. She's with a neighbor today. But yes, I need to go soon." Clara stepped back. "Thank you for fixing the helicopter and for reminding me what professionalism looks like." Ben stood, extended his hand. Clara shook it. Firm, equal. "Thank you for listening, ma'am." She watched him pack his bag. Simple, efficient. A man who knew his priorities, who lived them. As he walked toward the exit, Clara called after him. "Mr. Walker." He turned. "Tomorrow, I want you in my office." 9 a.m. Ben's expression didn't change. "Am I being disciplined?" "No. You're being promoted." Ben arrived at Clara's office at 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes early. As always, he wore clean coveralls, not a suit. He was still who he was. The receptionist recognized him from yesterday. Her expression had changed, less dismissive, more respectful. "Mr. Walker, Ms. Vaughn is expecting you." She led him to the executive floor. Glass walls, polished floors, a world away from the hangar. Clara's office overlooked the runway. She was standing at the window when he entered, turned to face him. "Thank you for coming." "You said 9 a.m. I'm here." Clara gestured to a chair, not the formal ones across from her desk, the comfortable ones by the window. Equals. Ben sat, waited. Clara sat across from him. "I didn't sleep well last night." I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. I needed to think about what you said, about what I've been doing. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I've been running this company for 8 years, built it from 12 employees to over 300. I'm proud of that. But somewhere along the way, I stopped asking the right questions. Ben listened. I stopped asking if my team felt safe, not physically, emotionally, professionally. If they felt they could say no, could set boundaries, could push back without losing their jobs. That's a good question to start asking. Clara nodded. Yesterday, you did something I haven't seen in years. You told me I was wrong, to my face, in front of others, and you were right. I didn't do it to be right. I did it because it needed to be said. I know. That's what makes it matter. Clara leaned forward. I want to change how this company operates. I want to build a culture where people like you feel safe speaking up, where boundaries are respected, where safety isn't a punchline. That's ambitious. It is. And I can't do it alone. She pulled out a folder, slid it across to Ben. This is a new position, Director of Safety Culture. It's not just maintenance. It's training. It's policy. It's being the person who can stop any project, any flight, any operation if safety is compromised. Ben opened the folder. Read. His expression didn't change. This comes with a significant raise. It should. It's a significant responsibility. And I'd be reporting directly to you. Yes, because I need someone who will tell me when I'm wrong, who won't laugh along to keep the peace. Ben closed the folder. Can I be honest? Please. I don't want this. Clara's face fell. Why not? Because I'm good at what I do. I'm good with my hands, good with machines. I understand helicopters. I understand maintenance. But management, policy, training, that's not my strength. You taught an entire hangar a lesson yesterday without saying much at all. That's different. That was one moment, one boundary. This job requires doing that every day, with people who won't listen, who'll resent me, who'll think I'm overstepping. Clara studied him. You're afraid. No, I'm realistic. I have Ava. I have a schedule that works. I have stability. This position would change all that. More hours, more stress, more politics. What if I told you the hours are flexible, that you keep your 3 p.m. hard stop, that you can still pick up Ava every day? Ben hesitated. And what if I told you that yesterday, 3 different technicians came to me after you left? Young guys, early in their careers. And they all said the same thing. What? That they'd never seen anyone stand up to authority like that, that it made them realize they could have boundaries too, that they didn't have to laugh at jokes that made them uncomfortable. Clara's voice was steady, earnest. You think you just set one boundary, but you started a ripple, and I need someone who understands that, who can help that ripple become a wave. Ben was quiet, processing. My wife, before she died, she used to say something. What? That the best leaders aren't the ones who want power. They're the ones who understand responsibility. Clara nodded. She was right. If I take this job, I do it my way. I don't become political. I don't play games. I say what needs to be said, even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. And if you ever cross a line again, I'll call it out, publicly if necessary. I'm counting on it. Ben looked out the window, at the hangar below, at the helicopters lined up on the tarmac. He thought about Ava, about what this would teach her, that standing up mattered, that boundaries led to opportunities, that doing the right thing opened doors. He thought about his wife, about the procedure that killed her, about all the other procedures happening right now. Rushed, careless, deadly. He couldn't fix the past, but maybe he could prevent future tragedies. Ben looked back at Clara. I want one more thing. Name it. The technician who found the relay jam yesterday, the one who confirmed I was right. I want him on my team. He listened when others doubted. That matters, Clara smiled. Done. Ben stood, extended his hand. Then I accept. They shook, but this time it felt different. Not just mutual respect, partnership. Clara walked him to the door. One more thing, Mr. Walker. Ben, if we're working together, it's Ben. Ben, thank you. For yesterday. For today. For reminding me why I started this company in the first place. Ben paused at the doorway. Why did you start it? To build something better, safer, more human. She smiled sadly. I'd forgotten that. Then we'll remember it together. Ben left the office, took the elevator down, walked back into the hangar. The morning shift was starting. Technicians looked up as he passed. Some nodded, some smiled. The young technician from yesterday approached. Hey, rumor is you got promoted. It's not a rumor. Congrats, man, you deserve it. Ben stopped. Actually, I need to talk to you. You interested in a new role? The young man's eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously. But it means speaking up when others won't. Think you can handle that? The technician straightened. Yeah, I can handle that. Ben clapped him on the shoulder. Good. We start Monday. As Ben walked to his workstation, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose beyond survival, hope beyond routine. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. Good luck today, Dad. You're the best. He smiled, texted back. See you at 3. Love you. Because no matter what changed, some things never would. 3 months later, the hangar looked the same. But everything felt different. Ben's first initiative was simple. A sign by the main entrance. Large. Impossible to miss. Any employee can stop any operation for safety concerns. No questions, no consequences. Clara had approved it immediately, but she'd added one line at the bottom. This includes stopping me. The culture shifted slowly, then quickly. A junior technician stopped a pre-flight check, noticed a hairline crack in a rotor blade, something that might have been dismissed as minor. Ben backed him publicly, grounded the helicopter until it was replaced. The client was angry, demanded to speak to management. Clara stood with Ben. Safety isn't negotiable, not for schedule, not for money, not ever. The client left, but 3 others signed contracts because of it. Word spread. This company was different. A young engineer came to Ben one afternoon, nervous. Sir, I need to report something. I'm not sir, I'm Ben. What is it? The new training module, the one about emergency procedures. It's too fast. People are checking boxes but not learning. Ben looked at her. You're right, let's fix it. They rebuilt the entire program, made it longer, more hands-on, less about compliance, more about competence. Clara attended one of the sessions, unannounced. She watched Ben teach, not from slides, from experience, from mistakes, from losses. He talked about his wife, about what happens when safety becomes routine instead of sacred. The room was silent. Afterward, an older pilot approached him. I've been flying for 30 years. Nobody's ever talked about it like that. Like what? Like it matters. It does matter. That's the point. The company's safety record became the best in the industry. 0 incidents, 0 close calls. Media wanted interviews. Industry conferences wanted Ben to speak. He declined most of them. I'm not here to be famous. I'm here to keep people alive. But he accepted one. A technical college. Students training to be aviation mechanics. He brought Ava with him. She sat in the front row, watching her dad. Ben didn't use a script, just told the truth. My job is to say no, to slow down, to stop things when everyone else wants to keep moving. And that's hard, because people want results. They want speed. They want efficiency. He paused. But I have a daughter, and every time I sign off on a helicopter, I imagine her on it. Would I let her fly if I wasn't certain? Would I risk her life for a schedule? He looked at Ava. No, never. And someone else's kid is just as important as mine. The students understood. After the talk, several came up to him. That's the kind of engineer I want to be. Ben smiled. Then be that. Don't wait for permission. Just do what's right. On the drive home, Ava was quiet. Then she asked, Dad, were you scared when you talked to all those people? A little. But you did it anyway. Yeah, because being scared doesn't mean you don't do the right thing. It just means it matters. Ava nodded. processing. Then she said something that made Ben's chest tight. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Ben pulled over, looked at his daughter. You already are, sweetheart. You already are. 1 year after that day in the hangar, Clara called an all-company meeting. Unusual, everyone gathered. Ben stood in the back, watching. Clara took the stage. A year ago, I made a mistake. I treated safety like a joke. I used power carelessly. I crossed a line. The room was silent. And one person had the courage to tell me I was wrong. Not aggressively, not disrespectfully, but clearly. She looked at Ben. He didn't do it for promotion or attention or approval. He did it because it needed to be said. Clara's voice was firm. This company is what it is today because of that moment, because someone chose boundaries over comfort, truth over politics. She held up a plaque. This is our first annual Safety Culture Award. It goes to the person who best embodies what we stand for. And this year, it goes to Ben Walker. Applause erupted. Ben didn't move. Clara walked to him, handed him the plaque. You changed everything, Ben. He looked at it, heavy, engraved. Then he looked at Clara. No, we changed it, together. The applause continued, but Ben stepped aside, let it fade. He didn't want celebration. He wanted what he'd always wanted, to do the job right, to go home to Ava, to live with integrity. That evening, Ben sat with Ava at their kitchen table. Homework spread out, normal, comfortable. Ava looked at the plaque on the counter. Are you proud, Dad? Ben thought about it. I'm proud that I didn't compromise, that I stayed who I am. That's enough. Ava smiled. Mom would be proud too. Ben's throat tightened. Yeah, she would. Later, after Ava was asleep, Ben stood in the doorway of her room, watching her breathe, peaceful, safe. He thought about that day in the hangar, about Clara's joke, about his response, about everything that followed. He'd been right to say no, not because it led to promotion, but because it was right. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. The narrator's voice, quiet and final. She dared him with power. He answered with principle. And an entire company learned that respect isn't given. It's earned, one boundary at a time. If this story moved you, subscribe to Daddy Healing Stories. We tell the stories of fathers who lead with integrity, who set boundaries, who show their children what strength really means. Hit subscribe, share this video, because the world needs more dads like Ben. Thank you for watching.